Yo, what's up? This is Kyle with Explore the Adventure. I am up here on Bell Rock in Sedona, Arizona. And I'm continuing from my last video where I was talking about the Necromancer. I was talking about my previous roommate, and I was telling you a story about how I got involved with astral projection, spirituality, psychic abilities, and all of that. So here's the continuation. So it's like, I meet this guy. He tells me about all of these things happening, these weird psychic abilities that he has, his ability to perceive things beyond the normal five senses. He talks about being able to see ghosts, demons, angels, whatever. I don't know if I could believe him. And in fact, I caught him, and his friends have caught him in lots of lies, so this person has no credibility. But here's the weird thing. The weird thing was, he sort of introduced me to a whole new world of possibilities of what's out there, or what's possibly out there. Because if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have met the next person that I'm about to speak about. So, I met this girl. I met this girl through an organization that I was a part of. And, one thing led to another, and we ended up becoming really close, like very close. I ended up dating her. In the beginning stages, as I was getting to know her, I actually told her a little bit about my roommate. I remember we were going on this really nice hike. It was nighttime. It was this mountain that has a cross on it. And we were going up to the top when I started telling her about some of my experiences with my roommate, while trying not to get too in-depth, because who really talks about that stuff? I mean, it is an interesting question to ask, whether you believe in ghosts or not. So I asked her that. And going deep into that, she said something very interesting. She said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I do believe in demons. That was definitely a hook. That was definitely an attention grabber. I just looked at her and I was just like, what do you mean? Like, how can you believe in demons but not believe in ghosts? And then she smiled at me and she said, my uncle can see demons. This was crazy, because I was taking a look at my roommate. I was taking a look at this girl's experiences with her uncle, and I was connecting the two together. Two people who were never really connected happened to have similar experiences. So she said, my uncle can see demons. And she said that he told her not to be afraid, because ultimately there's a balance going on. There's a whole balance going on to all of this. So I got to know her more, and I got to the point where I was talking to her about different psychic abilities and what's possible for what's out there. And I remember asking her whether she had any abilities. And I remember her just smiling at me, kind of looking off to the side and not saying anything, almost kind of mysteriously. So that led me to thinking. I kept on thinking about what she could possibly have, what her possible abilities are, and eventually it led to the moment where I straight up guessed what she might possibly have. So I remember being there with her, and I remember thinking to myself. I remember saying out loud, well, you're not exactly a mind reader. You don't seem to be a mind reader. You can't really, it's not like you're predicting my actions. It's not like you're staring deeply into me and predicting what I'm about to say or do. But there is a strange sense of calmness about you. A strange sense of ease about you. It's like you're very comfortable in your own skin, like a little too comfortable, almost as if you knew everything that was about to happen. If I were to take a guess, maybe you would have something to do with being able to see into the future. And then she smiled, and then again she sort of gazed off to the side, all mysterious-like, and she said, "You're very perceptive. But what I see, it isn't always good." Now this is the very first time I ever experienced anything to do with precognition. I didn't even know it was precognition at the time. What she told me was she would see certain events happen, and these events would happen to her in dreams. Now here's the thing, there's a different feel. As you know, and like, you're already attracted to this video. You're already watching this video, so I assume that you know a little bit about astral projection, or maybe you know a little bit about lucid dreaming, or anything about, New Age metaphysics. But basically, you can tell that there's a difference between a dream and a lucid dream. You can tell there's a difference between a lucid dream and an astral projection, or like traveling around in the astral realm. There's just a different feel to it. There's a different level of consciousness to it. When you are, or when she would experience these sort of time lapses, maybe she'd be dreaming, or maybe she'd be in this sort of like, dreamlike state, and then she would have a switch where she would start to experience a future event. She would be experiencing the event as if she were already living in that event. She's like going through the motions of how she's supposed to be feeling during that event. She can perceive like what other people are experiencing in that event. She can see what people are doing in that event. And she just experiences this event. And then she wakes up. And just like normal dreams, sometimes you forget about those dreams, you forget it even happened. But the thing is, when that event would happen again, she would experience it in full. She would experience it in full, and then she'd be like, aha, I've experienced this already. I've already been through this. I know what's going to happen. So, that tripped me out. My whole 2 years in Riverside it was a total game changer. It just completely changed my perspective on life and everything. Yeah, it was a complete game changer. There were days where we would be walking about, everything would just be chill, and then she'd be like, oh, I've already seen this. I've already experienced this. There were times where she would look at me and be like, oh, hey, I've already seen you wear that. I've already seen you wear that in that exact same way. Again, a normal person would just straight up be like, I don't believe you. A normal person just would be like, oh, where's the proof? This isn't something you can prove. Again, back then I was a lot more open to just believing things. I was more open to wanting to believe. She would describe to me different events that she perceived to have already happened as we were both experiencing it. She told me about her previous relationships. She told me about how with her previous ex, she actually foresaw that they were not together anymore. She foresaw seeing him walking with another woman, hand in hand. She told me about certain events that she's seen before it actually happened. She would talk about how she would sometimes bet on winning sports teams with her family if she knew they were going to win. And then people would never bet against her because she would always end up winning. Or she spoke about how she once saw how a big test was coming up and how that big test was actually canceled. So when everyone's like writing and everyone's sort of freaking out about the test that's about to happen, she's just chilling, she's just relaxing. She knew already that it was going to end up being canceled. She would just tell me about multiple different events that she's experienced like that, and she would just take advantage of it. Now, the key thing was that the thing is she doesn't see everything that's about to happen. She doesn't experience everything that's about to happen. She only sees what's given to her through those dreams or through those sort of time lapses where she'll experience those events in the future, and then she'll just take advantage of it. Earlier, I said that she told me that she doesn't always see pleasant things. She's seen a family member die before. Nothing she could do to prevent it. Again, with her not being with her ex. I remember when things between her and I were ending, and I asked her about the nightmares she's been having. She wouldn't tell me. She wasn't really willing to go into it. I don't know what she saw. I'm not gonna lie. Her telling this to me sort of messed me up psychologically, because I would continually think about whether I actually had free will or not. I would be continually thinking, wait a second, like if you can perceive events that happen before they ever actually happen, do I actually have free will? Like if she saw me wearing what I was about to wear before I ever actually wore it, and she saw certain experiences happen before they ever happened, do I even have a choice? She would tell me about certain events that happened in the future between the both of us, and it made me question whether I had a choice in preventing those things from happening. And it's interesting, I asked her, like, do you believe in free will if you see all of this stuff? And she said, yeah, I do. And that sort of, it confused me, because if you saw it happen before it ever happened, then how is there free will in that if it was going to happen anyways? Now, she did tell me about times where she's been able to change what she saw, but she told me just bad things would end up happening, like things would get messed up. She would just refuse to talk about it, no matter how much I would sort of pry into it. So yeah, I really thought about this for a very long time. I thought about all different possible futures, all different possible realities, all different possible things that could happen. And I really couldn't wrap my brain around it for the longest time. Now, I have come up with an explanation as to why she was experiencing these things and where this was coming from and what she was actually experiencing. And I do have an explanation for free will, but I'll talk about that later when I'm just wrapping all of this up. Everything leads to a point. So again, just when you think that things can't get crazier, things just get turned up a whole other level. And it's just like, if you thought that being able to see things before they happen was crazy enough, then when she told me that she could actually feel people's emotions, no, like not empath. In fact, I don't like that word. I feel like sometimes people use the word empath. They're just being a little melodramatic about how hypersensitive they are to other people. You know, maybe some of them could genuinely be actually feeling things from other people, or some of them could just be overly anxious and overly paranoid. I feel like a lot of... Well, okay, that's a tangent for later. That's for when I'm wrapping this up. But anyways, she was the most interesting form of empath that I've ever come across. In fact, she was the first one. She was the only one at that point. She could literally feel people's emotions on her, like sensations on her skin, like physical sensations, like sensations like moving towards her and sort of flowing on her, almost like air, almost like the wind that we're experiencing right now, how I can feel the wind on my skin. She could feel people's emotions like that. Like anger would be, very hot and heated. Lust would be kind of sticky and hot as well. Irritation would be hot, prickly. Loneliness, cold, very cold. There was just a whole spectrum, whole degree of emotions that you could feel on her. And I asked her, when did you know that you could experience this? And then she said, well, I remember feeling these things, but I remember looking at people, looking at their facial expressions, looking at how they behave, and then I'd correlate the emotions that I would feel in me, and I would correlate those emotions with how they were displaying themselves. This girl was very observant, like ridiculously observant. I have never, up to that point, she actually kind of intimidated me because her perceptiveness in other people was just on a scale that I've never encountered before. In fact, to this day, I don't think I've met another person who was this perceptive. And she taught me a lot. She taught me a lot about what other people are feeling. She taught me a lot about what she would look for in people when she's observing them. What's interesting is she said that the very first thing she looks at people would be their feet or their legs. It sort of shows where their intention is pointing, where their intention or what their direction is going in. Not necessarily when walking. When you look at a person's feet, when they're sitting down, or when they're talking to you, it can tell a lot about where their attention is when they're interacting with you. So here's the interesting thing about all of this. So she could feel people's emotions on her skin as physical sensations. Now, you know what's cool is that I was able to experience this for myself. I wouldn't have fully believed her until I got to experience it for myself. In her describing all of this, I became a lot more sensitive, and I tried to pay a lot more attention to the feelings that people would emit. And I wouldn't really feel much, but I would try and pay attention to physical sensations going on my skin, what I'm feeling in my body, how I'm perceiving the moment, what other people are doing. So there was one experience that I had that was, it was trippy. I was going back down to Riverside. I was taking the Greyhound bus. Yeah, it's a very fun bus. If you've ever rode it before, very long hours. So right when I was getting onto the bus, I could already tell that there was this other person that we just did not click. We did not get along. It was one of those people where when you look at them, you hate them and they hate you. So I remember we were in line. I remember we were doing this petty little thing where we were trying to move in front of each other. I ended up cutting in front of him, getting onto the bus first, because it was just all pure pettiness. So I get onto the bus first so I can, get a seat by myself. And of course, as fate would have it, all the other seats are taken and he ends up sitting next to me. So I'm sitting next to this guy and he's giving attitude. He's like, hey, have you ever heard of, what's that called? A divider? Have you ever heard of a divider? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, that's what this is for, so that I can sit here and you can sit there. Dude, it was a great start to a long bus ride down to SoCal from Northern California. So I'm sitting next to him. Tensions are riding high. And then I start to feel something. He's sitting to the left of me, and in between us I feel these pinpricks on my arm. I feel these pinpricks and this heat, almost like a blasting furnace just on my left side of the body. Then he turns to me. He's all pissed off. He's like, hey, like, quit touching me, or like something like that. And then I just get up in his face, and I was like, I don't really remember what I said. I was just angry at that point. And like, I was just like, what's your deal, dude? And then I'm getting like close. Like, I just wanted to hit this guy. But here's the thing. Something in me clicked. I just shut off the anger. I tried to. I just lowered my shoulders and I said, hey, look, dude. This is going to be a long bus ride. I just want to get home. Look, I apologized if, I've been, if I'm taking up space. I didn't mean to. It's kind of cramped here. Let's just chill out. Like, it's going to be a long, 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever. Then he calmed down. And for the rest of the ride, everything was good. The tension was just, he was cleared. So when I asked, you know what, I'm going to give her a name. I'll call her Lily. So when I asked, that was actually my grandmother's name. So I asked Lily, I asked her, or the empath, whatever works, Lily or the empath. I asked her, what does this emotion mean when you feel this? What does pinpricks and what does heat mean? And then she's like, it sounds like irritation, like deep irritation. And I was just like, wow, I didn't know this was universal. I didn't know that other people could feel this in this way. Maybe, I thought about this a lot too. I thought about what she was experiencing, what she was possibly experiencing. I thought about whether it was something in her brain that was picking up on unconscious cues of other people, and the brain was sort of creating feelings on her. Sort of I don't know if it's called synesthesia, but sometimes there's a psychological occurrence where sometimes when people will interact with others, they'll see colors coming out of their mouths, or they'll see words or whatever. I don't know if I'm talking about a certain criminal show that was happening recently, but people would associate certain colors or feelings with people's words or emotions. Just look up synesthesia. I'm sure that'll describe it a lot more than I am right now. So I just went off on a tangent. I completely forgot where I was leading to, but basically, she could feel all of these experiences. She could feel all of these emotions. She could feel all of these things on her skin as physical sensations. Now, here's the kicker. If you didn't think that things were weird already, the thing was, she said that she couldn't feel me. And she said she thought it was a fluke. She said that it was just it's interesting. I can't feel this person. The interesting thing about me, what I've noticed throughout my life with my friends, is sometimes I'll disappear, or sometimes my friends won't be able to sense me. I remember being at the mall one time, we're looking at this kiosk. I walked to the other side of the kiosk, and then for some reason, my friends start looking for me. They're looking for me for a good 5 minutes. And then later they just see me standing in the same spot I always was, and they're just like, dude, where were you? And I was just like, I was just standing there. I was just standing there this whole time. Sometimes people will just lose me in crowds, even though I'm just there. People just won't notice me. I'll just sort of blend into the background or disappear. I don't know if that has anything to do with what she was experiencing with me, but it's all fascinating. Till this day, I still don't know what it's about. So if you thought everything was crazy up to this point, don't worry. The fun doesn't stop there. It keeps on going. It gets on getting crazier. So she could feel people's emotions. She could see events through precognition in her dreams. The last thing that she could perceive or feel was people's essences, or souls, or life force, or energy force, whatever you want to call it. And the thing was, she told me that people's life force or their souls are like burning candles. Everyone's like a candle, right? Everyone gives off a different signature that radiates heat like a candle. Heat or like whatever it is. And a lot of people are just candles. Now, there are people she'll come across every now and then that are like fireplaces. Like she'll feel like more heat coming from those people. Now, very rarely, extremely rarely, she'll find people who are giving off energy signatures or soul signatures or whatever that's similar to a bonfire. Like it's a raging big fire. It's like very hot, like very heated. She said that I was her bonfire. God, this all sounds like Twilight or something. Like she can feel everyone else but me. I mean, here's the thing, she couldn't always feel people. Like especially in big crowds, there would just be a whole mix of emotions. Quick funny tangent. I remember like taking her to like a daytime like sort of festival. It was like a party festival. A lot of people were drunk high. She never drank or did anything, but she became incredibly intoxicated just by being out there. I remember asking her like, what's it like when you go to clubs? Like, what do you feel? And she's like, dude, everyone's just horny. Everyone is just horny. Everyone's lusting and everyone's just fucked up. And then I got to see an experience where she just got drunk off of other people, drunk and high, and you know, all of that stuff. That was fun. So anyways, going back from my tangent, I was her bonfire. And she said that she's experienced this before with very few other people. Like her grandmother, bonfire. One of her best friends is a bonfire. She said that she came across this person who used to go to high school with her, who felt like a bonfire. But the interesting thing about this person was he committed suicide. So, I don't know what that means. I don't know what this whole like bonfire, I don't know if I am actually radiating this. I don't know if it's like real or if she's just experiencing it individually for herself. I don't know if every other person out there has different bonfire people of their own, or if other people perceive me as a candle and they have their own bonfire people. I don't know if it means that like I don't know if it's an emotion that determines whether you're supposed to be like very close with someone or not, like if your souls are very close to each other or not. I still don't know. It's something that I've been asking for a very, very long time. I hope that you could help provide me some insights if you happen to have any insights. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time, but it's a question that I've sort of let go into the background. It's not something that really bothers me anymore. It's just something that I think about every now and then, but it's not something I lose sleep over. What's kind of cute is I remember that whenever she felt cold, all she would have to do was stand next to me, hold me, and she said that I would be radiating so much warmth that that's all she needed. No jacket or anything. I know, adorable. I actually ended up really loving her. I actually ended up becoming very attached to her. But the reason why I didn't continue things with her was because I wanted to know that I was in charge of my own future. I wanted to know at the time that I had a choice in what direction my life will take. And what she told me from her dreams implied that we would be together in the future. But I prevented that. And I gave myself the answer that I needed. Quick note, at the end of our relationship, right when I was leaving Riverside, right when we found out, when we worked out that, things weren't going to continue, she told me she wanted to give me something. And she gave me like a tiny, adorable little brown turtle. I don't know what it means. I'm going to describe more of what the brown turtle is in another video, in the future of this series, but just keep that in mind right now. Anyways, that's everything that comes to mind right now about my experiences with the Empath, or with Lily back in Riverside. I'm going to continue this series somewhere else. I'm at Bell Rock right now. As I probably said at the beginning of this video, I was at Cathedral Rock earlier today telling the first part of my story. And next, I don't know, I'm going to go get some lunch. I'm going to go get something delicious. I wanted like a sandwich or something, like something good. I'm going to go to there's a place I haven't been to yet here called like the 7 Sacred Pools. And then I haven't been to Devil's Bridge. I've already hit all of the energy vortexes in this area. To be honest, when I first came here, I felt a lot of energy. Like I felt like I would be shaking when I first came here to Sedona, but I don't feel much anymore when I come here. I want to relate that back to astral projection. When I would first experience the vibrations, I would be shaking and they would be very intense. Now when I'm transitioning into the astral realm, or whatever you call it, there's not many vibrations. It's actually very low. It's not as strong anymore. I would like to correlate that to the energy that I feel here at Bell Rock or Cathedral or just Sedona in general. I guess I'm becoming more used to it. So anyways, that wraps things up. I'll continue this series in the next video. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Peace.